Reflection for the 19th Sunday after Pentecost.
The king in today's gospel from Matthew has prepared a wedding feast for his son, and everything is ready. The oxen and fat calves have been killed. The tables are set. The celebration is about to begin. He sends his servants to call those who were invited, and they won't come. Some ignore the invitation entirely, going off to their farms and businesses. Others treat the messengers so badly they kill them. So the king sends his armies, destroys those murderers, and then throws open the doors. He tells his servants to go to the highways and byways and invite everyone, good and bad alike. The hall fills with guests, but then the king notices someone without a wedding garment, and that person is cast out into the darkness. This parable should unsettle us, and it's meant to. We might hear it and think, well, at least I showed up. At least I'm here. But Jesus is telling us something deeper and more challenging than that. The kingdom of heaven is not just about accepting an invitation, it's about being transformed by it. Think about those first guests who were invited. They had every advantage. They were the chosen ones, the expected guests, the people who should have known better. But when the moment came, they chose their fields and their merchandise instead. They had something else they loved more. St. John Chrysostom, reflecting on this passage, pointed out that these people weren't necessarily doing evil things in that moment. They were just busy with their own affairs. But that's exactly the problem. They preferred their ordinary lives to the king's feast. They said no to glory because they were too attached to dust. We do the same thing, don't we? We've been invited to the wedding feast of the Lamb. We've been called to divine life, to communion with God Himself, to become partakers of His own nature. And yet how often do we say, in effect, "Not now, I'm busy"? We have our routines, our comforts, our plans. We have the life we've built for ourselves, and God's invitation feels like an interruption rather than the greatest honor we could ever receive. The epistle today from Ephesians warns us about exactly this. St. Paul tells us to put away the old nature, to be renewed in the spirit of our minds, to put on the new nature created after the likeness of God. This isn't a minor adjustment. This is a complete transformation. But here's what's both wonderful and terrifying about this parable. The king doesn't give up. When the invited guests refuse, he opens the doors to everyone. He sends his servants into the streets to gather anyone they can find, both bad and good. This is the radical mercy of God. None of us deserve to be at this feast. We're the people from the highways and byways, the unlikely guests, the ones who had no right to expect an invitation. Yet here we are, called by grace, welcomed into the wedding hall. St. Augustine reflected deeply on God's grace and our response to it. He understood that we don't make ourselves worthy. God makes us worthy. But we must allow Him to do so. We must receive the gift and let it change us. That's where the wedding garment comes in. The guest who shows up without proper wedding attire isn't cast out because he's poor or because he couldn't afford nice clothes. In the culture Jesus is describing, the host would have provided the garment. The man is cast out because he refused to wear what was given to him. He wanted to come to the feast on his own terms, in his own clothing, unchanged. This is the heart of the matter. God gives us the garment of grace in baptism. He clothes us with Christ Himself. But we have to choose to wear it, to live in it, to let it define who we are. The wedding garment is the new life Paul describes in the epistle, putting away falsehood, speaking truth, working honestly, giving grace to those who hear. It's a life renewed day by day, a life that looks less like our old self and more like Jesus. For families trying to live this out, for children learning what it means to follow Christ, this parable teaches us that God's invitation is serious. It's not just another item on our calendar, another obligation to fit in between soccer practice and dinner. It's the whole point. Everything else is meant to serve this, our transformation into people who can genuinely feast with God, not as strangers or pretenders, but as true children who bear the family likeness. The collect for this Sunday asks God to keep away all misfortune so that, unhampered in soul and body, we may perform with peaceful minds the works that are His. Notice what we're asking for, not a life of ease, but freedom from whatever hinders us from doing God's work. We're praying to be unencumbered, to have our hearts and hands free for what really matters. That prayer is asking for the grace to wear the wedding garment well, to live as people who've truly accepted the invitation and been transformed by it. The parable ends with those haunting words, "Many are called, but few are chosen." We might wonder what that means. Are some people just predetermined to be cast out? No, the point is that many receive the invitation, but few respond in a way that shows they've really received it. Few allow themselves to be clothed with the new life God offers. Few choose to be chosen. So we're left with the question, have we truly accepted the invitation? Are we wearing the wedding garment? Or are we trying to come to God's feast on our own terms, unchanged, still holding on to the old life with both hands? The King is looking at each of us. What does He see?